Welcome back to The Flower of Freedom by Deborah J. Reeves. We're on chapter 36, Silver and Gold Christmas. We're going to begin right away because I can see that you've already found your way to the chair. I'm glad you left your burdens outside. You can use a few minutes of rest and relaxation. Here we go. Mama did not get a chance to talk, lamented Marie, and her mother said it was all right as she went to comfort Oscar. What is it, my love? She asked her husband. That lonely old man begged for our forgiveness, he said as he held her tight, hiding his face in her hair. Who could have told him Marie's final words? It was only then that Marie realized that Uncle Aki had overheard her outburst to Paulette. Her epiphany was overshadowed by the need to get ready to leave. Christmas dinner at the Donovans' place was fun. Their 5 little children were hyped up. Jean-Claude, Michelle's lawyer brother, and his wife Fan were with their 4. All the various in-laws and outlaws, as Jean-Claude called them, were there. The house was filled to bursting with happy people. Even their old Uncle Ted showed up with his guitar, and he made merry. Elderly neighbors were there. Miscellaneous guests were there. Dr. Donovan was a collector of fine people, the way some people collect fine wines. His eyes lit up when he saw Marie, and he swept her off her feet in a hug. Jean-Claude said, "My turn," and he did the same thing, asking if her uncle had kept his part of the bargain. Marie assured him that Uncle Aki was better than his word. Their wives had to settle for hugs because swinging people in circles after they were more than 7 was not the done thing. Everyone admired Marie and her mother's dresses with oohs and ahs that made them blush. There was singing and there were games that included everyone. Marie and Bertie rushed to cater to the elderly folks as their mother did when she was not helping in the kitchen. Dr. Donovan was a loving and generous host, and a good time was had by all. The feast was wonderful for being so very predictable and delicious. All the old favorites were there. Everyone brought their specialty to Christmas dinner, and everyone looked forward to each one. Every dish was greeted with extravagant sounds of delight. They sat at the table for a long time smiling at all the loving friendships that had surrounded them. They seemed to be bathed in a loving community, and they wondered if they would ever take the people there for granted. And they hoped that they never would. They made up their minds never to do that as they looked around the table at more gray hair than there used to be. Peoples whose legs were long enough for their feet to touch the floor, and a few elderly ladies who never managed that feat, sat at the table long after dinner. Children zoomed in and out of the dining room, diving forward to the floor to play board games or to play with newly unwrapped toys. Eventually, Maybelle taunted Bertie until he agreed to challenge Archie and the twins to a game of Twister. The swashbuckler was sitting next to Maybelle, and he chided her for teasing. He said, "You'd never know that you'd loved that young man with the way you teased him, Maybelle. He really brings out the sharp tongue in you." "What?" "Tongue in cheek, maybe," Maybelle retorted. "I think I will use discretion on that topic. I do not wish to have the talent turned on to me," the swashbuckler chuckled, and he held up his hand to indicate surrender. A raucous game of Twister ensued, and the swashbuckler pulled Maybelle back. just as she lifted her foot to push Bertie over. He said, "Stop it. Bertie will fall on top of Archie, and no one needs a trip to emergency on Christmas night." Soon, however, the evening drew to a close. The dishes were all done, and people left with their own clean dish, usually filled to the brim with leftovers. The single people in the group and the older people seemed particularly pleased by that. People huddled by the door calling goodbye as each departing guest braved the cold. Many drove others home so that they would be safe. Then it was time for the Saint Laurents to leave. The Donovan kids wanted to know if Bertie could sleep over, but he told them that Marie would miss him so that he couldn't. By the time the little Saint Laurent family returned to their apartment, they were satiated and happy and tired. As Bertie went to sleep that night, his last words were, 4 more days. They made the most of their last 4 days, but soon it was the 29th of December. Uncle Aki had booked an evening flight so that they would have the entire day together. Bertie asked why Marie had to go back at all if Uncle Aki had apologized. "I promised, Bertie," Marie responded. "It's also the right thing for her to do, Bertie," said Oscar, and Bertie looked to his papa, and then he understood. "I will see you at the end of February, Bertie, in Switzerland, you posh fellow," Marie joked as she clung to her mama and papa in turn. As the plane streaked across the evening sky, headed eastward, Bertie tried to keep his lower lip from trembling. "February," he said with resolve. When Marie disembarked the next morning, the driver was waiting at the terminal. As he gathered her suitcase from the carousel, he remarked that it was very light, and Marie grinned, a sly little grin. That's the end of chapter 36. Marie is back in Paris, and we'll see what happens from there. I look forward to seeing you for chapter 37. As always, I remain your friend, Deborah.